What's going on, guys? I've realized with the late nights that I work and operate gotta get that off my shirt. The late nights that I work and operate our family owned and operated bar, I come home super late, the wife and the kid are asleep, and honestly, I'm realizing that that might be the best time for me to make a video. Anyways, the topic of this video is grading your cards. Should you grade your cards? What are the companies that you could go with? What are my opinions on it? And let's get started. So, and then I've got some deeper questions in terms of grading. But let's start with the four companies. The four big companies. You've got PSA. We've got our nice crystal reverse Charizard here. We've got PSA. Okay. We've got, which, if you guys are new to grading, let's go ahead and zoom that in there. We've got PSA. This is what the slabs tend to look like. My opinion on the quality of the slabs, they're kind of thin. They're kind of thin. I don't know if they're my favorite, but you've got the grade up here. You've got the name of the card, the serial, the cert, the certification. Okay, then we've got Beckett. Beckett's honestly probably my favorite. Really thick slab, feels really sturdy. I love the feel of the Beckett slab. I like how it's very square. This is definitely my favorite. I like the subgrades as well. I personally submitted this card. It cost me about $80 to submit. It really was not worth it for me at all, and I waited a really long time to get the card. You know, maybe it wasn't a really long time, but it was a really long time waiting because I absolutely loved this card when I bought it raw. And it is kind of cool to encapsulate it in here, knowing that the card is semi-protected. But we'll get into the value of all this after going through some of the basic companies. There's AGS, which this is a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I really like Dark Paladin, but this is AGS. We've got the grade over here. I don't know if you guys can make this out very easily. There it is. We've got AGS, that's the grading company. This is like an AI robotic grading company. These other companies are graded by human beings, but that one's AI, so that's, yeah, AGS. And then we've got CGC, which I think CGC is relatively new to the scene. They have been mainly doing comic books, but recently got into Pokemon. Around in the pandemic, there was $50 grading charges. I know my Beckett charge was $50, and then I paid for insurance and shipping, so it ended up being like $80. I think CGC at that time was doing like $20 per card grading. Don't quote me on this, I'm no expert. Let's refocus that back in. There we go. AGS, I think, was like maybe 30 or 25. I'm not entirely sure on these. I just know that my Beckett one was $80 when all was said and done. And I also got subgrades, which costed a little bit more. And then and PSA does not do subgrades. I wish they did, but PSA is kind of the staple. This is kind of the general submitting grading company that everybody tends to use. And at the time, I think, during the pandemic, I think grading was $50. I think at this point in time, it might be $15 a pop. But here's the thing. When I get graded cards, typically the grades are pretty in line with the cards, but a lot of the times, like, it's kind of what you would expect. But a lot of the times, it's very objective. Like you'll get a card that's a 7 or 8, and it'll have like lifting, like the card will be lifting, there would be some slight lifting or some weird imperfection. And for me, being super OCD, when I'm paying top dollar for like a 7, 8, or a 9, and the grading companies, and they differ too. Like, what I'm seeing is like CGC, BGS, maybe AGS I can throw in that group too, are usually will grade higher than PSA. PSA, I feel like, is pretty strict in terms of grading. So I think PSA gives you probably the most accurate grade, but then to add to that, it's so objective. Like, you'll get a 5 that could have been a 7. You'll get a 7 that should have been a 5, and so forth. Like, it's amazing how many cards get certain grades and how many don't. I know that I have 2 first edition. I have a Blastoise and a Venusaur. Both of them have like weird surface creases or like basically a very clean bend in their corners, but they got a 5 and a 6. No 5 and a 6 ever should get any kind of bend. If the card has a bend in it, it should not, like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I definitely wanted the best bang for my buck, so a lot of my cards are like 5s and 6s and sometimes 7s, because once you get to 8, 9, and then 10 gets extremely expensive. Like 10, it's astronomically expensive to buy any card that's a sought-after, valuable card in a 10. Whereas 9, you get a massive drop-off in value. Massive drop-off in like what the card is selling for, but the value is actually pretty good because you're paying way less than you would on a 10. And then 8s are like, I think 8 is like one of the best ways to go. Like, any kind of graded 8 card is going to be, for the most part, a mint condition card that doesn't have creases, that doesn't have too much, surface scratches. 8 is a very strong card. So I think as collectors move forward, they realize that they're just kind of wasting their time buying lower grade cards. In the past, I thought that lower grade cards were really good value, but moving on from this and the objective like grading that goes on, like the grading scales and like what that means, the bigger question is like, would I grade my cards, right? Like, giving you my opinion, right? Because that's like part of the point of this video, is to give you my opinion. The only card, I buy graded cards. I like buying graded cards because they're protected. They're not going to get fucked up in, I'm not supposed to curse, but they're not going to get messed up in shipping, right? That's a huge one. If your cards are going to get messed up in shipping, why are you going to order them again? I've had one secret rare card. It was an alternate art Rayquaza from Evolving Skies. It's one of my videos that I've done titled like USPS destroyed my Rayquaza. I was devastated when I got that card and it was destroyed because it wasn't protected in shipping, but more or less the shipping company destroyed the card, basically. That doesn't happen with PSA graded cards. It doesn't happen, they're protected. But the actual act of getting them graded, I would just let somebody else do that legwork. If they want to make money doing that, fine. But I would never want to just start getting cards graded. Like, unless I just had tons of money to blow and I had somebody helping me out to package all the cards up and send them out, sure. I think for a lot of collectors, grading has just become a normal, fun thing. It's, it's fun because you get to see, what the grade is that's coming back. But it really is a money grabber, in my opinion. Like, it's, other than the protection of the card, the grade, you can see what the card kind of would grade in. Like, the grade is, it's subjective to like what you're looking at, like Beckett gave this Charizard a 5. I think this Charizard was a 6. So honestly, does that change, my opinion of the card's value? In some ways, do I wish I didn't send it in? Yeah. And during the time in which I sent it in, I absolutely wish I hadn't sent it in because it took months to get back. And for a lot of people, that's not a long time. Some people send bulk PSA submissions to these grading companies, and then they're waiting like half a year or the whole year, and that's like normal. They're waiting to get their cards back. That takes a long time. They have a massive backlog. They honestly need to hire way more people to do that. Wouldn't that be a sick job, grading cards? But I'm sure that would also get super redundant. I want you guys to let me know what you think of grading in general. Are you grading cards? What companies do you go with? What were your experiences like? I've talked to a lot of people in the hobby. Some people seem to really make a living off of like buying raw cards, like buying raw Charizards and then getting them graded and flipping them. The turnaround time for that and the amount of buying cards, you're taking a huge risk when you're buying a raw card. You're only getting the pictures online. So often do I get cards and it's not what I saw online. There's little dings or dents, or there's a little crease that wasn't shown in the photo. You want to know why it wasn't shown in the photo, because if it was shown in the photo, you wouldn't have bought it. So you're going in blind when you're buying raw cards these days. The market is so inflated. you know, it's so expensive to buy graded cards that a lot of people are just buying the raw cards, or if they want to flip them and grade them, they're buying the raw cards as well. So you have a lot of competition to buy raw cards now. It almost seems like there's more graded cards to buy from than there are raw cards to buy from. I know that I'm gonna get a lot of rebuttal on that, but that's okay. This whole channel is about us discussing these topics and going over them. You know, God, and I absolutely love this. When this card came back, I was so happy, but if I'm ever going to grade cards, it's not going to matter about the money. I'm just going to wait till there's a convention where, like, Beckett was at the convention at Comic-Con when I went, so I was able to just stand in line, fill out some paperwork, and I left the card with them. And that's really the ideal situation for me. I don't want to have to package stuff up, put it in a box, and send it out, you know, worrying about when it's going to get to the grading company. I would rather leave it with a human being that is protecting my card and responsible of it and gonna get it to the company. I would rather do that. And then it's like, how badly do you want to get your high value cards graded? Honestly, I was nervous as heck getting this card graded, getting this Beckett Shadowless Charizard graded. I was nervous as heck. But the guy in front of me had a first edition Charizard that he was getting graded, and he didn't even pay for insurance. And I just thought that was absolutely wild, that you have this really high value card and you're not even gonna pay for insurance. Aren't you like worried something's gonna happen to this card that basically could buy you a car? Like, it was just crazy to me. And then on a deeper note, you know, I love, you know, when I'm doing a video and I'm starting to think of other things, and I thought about this point before I started the video, but a deeper point is like, what is our obsession with grading cards? Why are we doing this? Why are we collectors buying this stuff that we barely look at? Like, I can't tell you, I barely, and I know that other collectors are the exact same way. If I'm this way, it's relatable to a lot of people. You buy all these cards, and occasionally I force myself to open my boxes of cards, my rare cards, and just go through them and look at them, and it makes me happy. I'm not gonna lie. Like, looking at shiny paper can make a person happy. And there's something psychologically that's got to be connected to that. We're like fish in the ocean, and the lure is shiny, you know, and it's shiny cardboard in this case. But like, what's the deal? We buy all this stuff. It sits. We barely look at it. I love Pokemon cards, but you know, I asked myself this, especially as I just bought 2 PSA 5 graded Charizards, and I'm like, I know that this card probably, if we weren't in such an inflated kind of bubble sort of market, I know that it would be a lot cheaper. In 2019, you could get a PSA 5 Charizard for $1,200. Why I paid $4,000, honestly, I can't tell you. I think the market has changed a lot and that it's moving upwards, but there have been people that have influenced this market, been a part of it, caused prices to skyrocket, you know, and it goes down the chain. Like, really, it's the biggest collectors that have affected this market and kind of decided what the prices are going to be. And I don't really care about all that, because at the end of the day, if the value has gone up for all this stuff, then maybe the market's stronger than it's ever been because of all these influencers, all these, you know, people. But it's like, back to the psychological piece of it. Why are we buying this stuff? And we stack it up and we put it in boxes, we put it in briefcases, and we put it, you know, we put a card in a sleeve, and that gets graded by a company that gets put in a plastic case, and then I put it in another plastic sleeve, and then I put it into a box, and then I put it into a briefcase, and then I put it into a glass case. It's like, we're putting all these things in boxes, we barely look at them, and then, you know, it just sits there. You know, that's the life of a collector, of most collectors, I feel like. And like, I really wanted to make a video that was authentic and genuine, and you know, aside from just saying that I wanted to do that, I think that this video does that. I think I'm talking about the stuff that people need to talk about. Why are we doing this? And you know, I think in some ways, like, we think that it's going to be a time capsule, and we want our stuff to be protected for a long period of time, and so grading is such a big deal for that reason. But we could probably do this ourselves, you know, and that's, for a long time I was buying magnetized cases, because I thought, why am I going to grade the card? I already know it's a perfect card, or I already know that it's a worn card. I don't need the company to tell me this. I can dictate the value of the card with my honest assessment of the card. You know, what is the obsession with getting stuff graded? And my final opinion is, it's just really not worth it. It's not worth it from a long-term investing perspective. I feel like you're so much better off putting the money that you would use towards buying that card. Like, for instance, okay, back to the Beckett Charizard. Okay, if I would have, I bought this card for $375. It got a 5. It's probably worth $600 or $700 now because it got a 5. It went up a good, decent bit in value. Could I have put it in a magnetic case, put it in a plastic sleeve, and said, I believe this card would grade in a higher grade, and it just kept it as an ungraded card? Yeah, I could have done that. And if you're reputable enough and you have a good enough credibility in the hobby, then people will actually believe you. I know there's a lot of high-end card sellers that are also YouTubers that are known in the hobby, so people trust them. They will buy from them. They don't really need to get their stuff graded if they don't want to. On top of that, instead of grading it, you could use the $80 that I spent to grade this card, or like $82 or $83, maybe $85. I don't know, but it was expensive. I could have used that money to go towards another one. If I paid almost $400 for this one, then that would mean that would be $80 going towards another $400 card. And then I have 2 of the cards instead of one that's graded. And I'm gonna do a more in-depth video talking about how I think collectors evolve over time, how we go through these stages. And I'm gonna save that because it's good content. I probably won't get it done tonight. After this video, I am doing a mystery mail day video number 68. I've got some mail here. I'm gonna go ahead and open that up for a mystery mail day video. But yeah, I just wanted to get this whole grading video done and talk about it and see what you guys think and tell you my honest assessment. It's amazing to me that we spend all this money getting this stuff, sending it to a company and having them tell us what we should think about the card. Like, we're not even able to make our own assessments of the cards, and there's something very wrong there. Why we're not confident or able enough to say, or intelligent enough to say, hey, this is what the card should be, this is probably what it would grade at, and that's that. I don't need a grading company in the middle to take several months, take my card, potentially have it damaged. I just don't think all that's worth it. Now, what I will say is, if you have a card you really like, which when I was standing in line and looking at the grading costs, I had a stack of cards that I wanted to grade. I had this whole thing in my head, like, I'm gonna get a bunch of stuff graded, and then I'm gonna do a graded, submission return video. And I'm so glad I didn't send a bunch of other cards there, because at the end of the day, the amount of money I would have spent on grading several cards probably would have been a couple $100, $400, $500, $600. I could buy a whole new card with that. And that's basically what I decided to do. I got this one Charizard graded because it was the first shadowless Charizard that I'd ever bought. And then I decided, instead of grading all the other cards, because this one got a 5, I ended up ordering a PSA 6. And like, when I'm talking about grading is so subjective, this PSA 7 Skyridge Charizard, it's a beautiful card. It's very straight. It barely has any wear on the back of it whatsoever. But in proper lighting, if you look really, really close, and it's harder to see, these slabs make it harder to actually see what a card's condition is like, which is dangerous, because when you're buying stuff online, it looks really good in the slab, but slabs make cards look better, in my opinion. It's just as, in some ways, I want to say that it's less risky because you're at least getting some idea of like what the quality of the card is from the grading company, but at the same time, you don't know what that grader was doing. If that grader had a bad day, had a fight with their wife, had an episode with their car breaking down on the side of the highway, and they got into work late because they had to Uber there, they're just pissed off. They're grading everything terribly that day. And people have talked about this, but I think it's really important to take into account this particular card. For the longest time, I thought was a beautiful 7 that should have gotten an 8 or a 9. But as I look at it in the light perfectly, I actually very, very, very faintly can see a little bit of lifting in the top edge. And like, it's something that I feel like nobody would notice, and I didn't notice it for months, but eventually the other night I had it in a particular lighting, and I was like, yo, is that slight lift right there? Is that looks like someone put their finger on the card accidentally and pressed down on it a little bit? Like, it's a huge bummer because you'll notice that so much later. And I feel like in a lot of ways, for the amount of money I paid for the card, which was $700, and it's not even the hollow Skyridge Charizard, it's the reverse hollow, which is cool too, but I really wanted the hollow of the card. That would have costed thousands of dollars. And that's another thing, like, everything is really inflated right now. We are in some kind of bubble, and I know vintage is going down. I think modern doesn't have a lot of room to go down, right? It's already at wholesale, it's already MSRP. The sky is the kind of the limit for modern, but vintage is a totally different story. PSA 5 Charizards were $1,200 to $1,500 in 2019. I feel like a price that I would be much more comfortable with had paying for my PSA 5s would be more like $3,000. I think $2,000, maybe even $2,000, $2,500. And there might be people out there that'd be like, dude, no, first edition Charizard, that's a fantastic investment. That's not going anywhere. We just don't know. Only time can tell. And either way, I love the hobby. I love collecting cards. I love shiny cardboard. It's all fantastic. But I do have to ask myself the hard questions. You guys have to ask yourself the hard questions. You know, is this worth what I'm spending? Is it changing my quality of life? You know, I think these things are important and, you know, bring a lot of things to light that wouldn't normally be brought to light. Like, it's always like, wow, look what I got. But it can't always be roses and rainbows. You know, there are people out there that are spending a lot of money on this graded stuff, and, you know, it's a perfect example. When price of grading came down from $50 to $15, people got burned. They got burned bad, and here's why. If you had a card that was worth $100, you got it graded for $50. You're in the hole $150. Okay, the card is actually worth $85 in that grade. You're losing a bunch of money on that. But even if the card was worth $100 still, and you paid the $50 for grading, well, now someone can get that card for $100, or maybe even 90, 95. Maybe the market goes down a little bit. They get it for $80. The grading is 15. That person now has undercut you and able to get a card graded and sold for a lot less than the card you got. So it's like a whole group of people that were getting their cards that may still be waiting on submissions. They may still be waiting on returns for their cards, but they've already given PSA the $50 per card. Those people got royally screwed. They got royally screwed. And, like, that's the thing, is, like, do we really need to get cards graded? You know, I think back to my Beckett Charizard, that's a card I really wanted graded. Would I go through that again? Probably not. I pretty much told myself you have way better value buying more cards and putting them in magnetic cases, and that's pretty much what I've done. A lot of my favorite cards that are in my display case, they're in magnetic cases because I'm like, that's the same protection that a graded card's going to be, but these magnetic cases costed me 50 cents or $1 or $2 a piece. And that's like, even that seems like a lot of money. Like, it's this whole repetitive story of, like, we collect this stuff, it goes in a binder, we never look at it again. We collect this stuff, it goes in a slab, that goes in a sleeve, that goes in a box, like, then it goes into bins, then it goes in our garage, then we never look at it for like 10 years. And, like, that's kind of a good strategy from the long-term collector standpoint, but from, like, day-to-day enjoying your cards, come on, let's not front. The raw card feels better. To be able to look at your Pokemon card and hold it like a Pokemon card as a kid again feels better. And even that we don't do anymore. Everything has to be sleeved, and with a top loader, with a rigid piece of plastic, it's all got to be protected, and it's just like, everything is just so different now. And it's concerning to me, like, the psychology of having all this protection for all this stuff, and, like, will it really hold value? I mean, to be honest, guys, it's cardboard. It's cardboard. Even I know, like, sometimes I'm like, bro, you put easily 6 figures into your collection, and now you're gonna say that it's, like, inflated and that it's cardboard. call me crazy, call me, someone that's what's the right word? Contradicting myself. But it's just, I'm just being honest. You guys have known that from the jump on this channel. I try and be honest about things. I try and be as transparent as possible. Even the stuff that I sell in my store, I really don't expect people to be jumping out to buy it. I'm still selling stuff, but I don't expect people to be jumping out to buy it. I price stuff for prices that I don't really even want to sell it for. Like a lot of this stuff is priceless to me, and we create our own value, right? We create, in our head our own prices. And like, not to say names, but something that was brought to light to me recently was like, King Pokémon or Gary Haas. I'm trying to remember his full name, but he goes on Pawn Stars. He's got all the first edition Charizards. He wants hundreds of thousands of dollars, but he doesn't accept any offers. There's no real offer made on the show. It's just kind of like his way of saying like, this is what I deem these cards at. And like the market was, at that time, after that episode, I feel like the market in some ways was created for that card. Like a whole new market, because the card, you could get it for a couple $100. You could get PSA 8, PSA 9, even a PSA 10 probably you could get for a couple $1,000, maybe $10,000, a couple years ago. And now these cards are worth $500,000. I mean, it's insane where we're getting at. And, God bless, I really hope that my PSA 5 Charizards don't end up worth $500 at some point. I'm taking a massive risk. But, and to that point, all of us that are investing so much into this hobby, we're riding this, hype train, whatever you want to call it. We're also taking risks ourselves. We're taking risks that this thing is something that in the long term is not just us chasing nostalgia, but is really a great asset. I'd be lying to you if money was not a, common denominator in making these choices. Like, everyone's hyping up Pokemon and, saying how great it is. And I'm over here in the corner like, well, I think it's a great investment. I think it could be a great investment. Is the nostalgia really cool? Absolutely. But you don't see me paying $500 for a base set pack to rip it open on camera. I'm not doing that. I genuinely think that it's an asset and an investment at these prices. And one part of me hates how inflated the market is. Like, it's so hard to get this stuff. But the other part of me is actually very happy and relieved to see such an inflated, strong market. People buying this stuff like crazy, bidding on it like crazy, even if they can't afford it or don't even want it, but they don't even know why they're bidding on it. We don't even know why we're doing this. But it's like, I kind of love that about it, because it's like, here we finally have like maybe a stable investment. And again, could be a bubble. We could be in some kind of weird vintage bubble. And this is strictly about vintage. If you're solely investing in modern TCG, you're probably fine. This really doesn't apply to you that much, in my opinion. Modern is just fantastic because people are ripping this stuff open, and we've got more content creators than ever, and everybody's opening up cards and looking for the chase card. So the product is getting eaten up very, very quickly, and Pokemon can't just keep printing this stuff. They've got to work on printing Scarlet and Violet. To that point, Crown Zenith just came out. I still haven't gone to my local hobby shop, so maybe I'll do a video driving over there in the Beamer that's now fixed. Maybe I'll do a video driving over there tomorrow and picking up some Crown Zenith before my ship. Actually, no. I don't think... yeah, it'd be very, very tight call before my shift, because my shift's at 1 and the shop opens at 12. So that might not happen tomorrow. But I'm definitely doing this mail day video tonight. I hope tonight. I have to get this uploaded, and now it's a 30-minute video. God, I'm ranting so hard. I'm sorry, guys. And congrats everybody who's gotten me to the point of monetization. That's freaking sick. I'm stoked about it. But let me know what you guys think about this whole grading thing. I think it's a redundant topic that I don't wish to revisit again. But I do think it's important, to give my my points on it. honestly, I think the companies that everybody should be going with are probably PSA, CGC, and Beckett. I really like the way the Beckett slabs feel. If you have to get your stuff graded, PSA probably with $15 grading right now is the way to go. It's a really respected company. I think everybody is kind of very used to this, red and white label. It looks great looking at these, but at the end of the day, would I have a bunch of my cards graded, versus spending money on more collectibles, on buying more sealed product or buying more raw ungraded cards and just trying to judge by the pictures and by the seller credibility, is this going to be a good buy for me? I think that's the way to go. I think there's so many raw cards that are out there that haven't been found yet, that are going to surface on the market in the coming years. And there's going to be more and more cards getting graded. So if you're trying to grade and have the best grades, another subscriber was telling me his story about how he was on PSA's number 6 top registry list for Sky Ridge Hollows. Sky Ridge is a very, very good set that Wizards of the Coast was the last set that Wizards of the Coast made. It's this green box right here. But he, and his Instagram is insane. He has all these PSA 9 Sky Ridge cards, which he's since sold, but the pictures are still on the Instagram. But he was telling me his whole life story, basically, about how he wanted to have the highest. This is actually a great point to end the video. He wanted to have the highest list of most valuable PSA 9 Sky Ridge cards. And then the market boomed, and influencers came to the scene, and celebrities came to the scene, and all these YouTubers were hyping stuff up, and they were using the money they were making to buy all the best product. And before he knew it, he was getting outgraded in every card, from the reverse hollows to the regular hollows. And his PSA 9s really didn't matter that much anymore, because there were so many 10s and other 9s and 9.5s that were hitting the market. And that really crushed him, because not only was he losing thousands of dollars in value, but he realized that there's always more cards. So now his strategy is just buying a bunch of sealed product and opening it, having fun looking for the cards, and selling his bulk, and then getting cards graded. He's one of those people that believes in getting cards graded still, but he's kind of done with trying to chase the vintage card market. And I think there's a lot to be said there with grading in general. From what happened to him, I don't understand why, after losing so much value in the cards you originally had graded, putting all that money and time into it, and then realizing there's more cards coming into the market, flooding these grading companies. I don't know why after that you would think that buying modern and getting them graded would be any different. Either way, you're going to get these cards graded, and there's always going to be more supply. So I think for the most part, just stick to buying the raw cards and buy yourself some magnetic cases. And I bought a ton of these because this is my new thing. I'm kind of avoiding buying graded cards unless they're very high value cards, and I can't risk overspending a ton of money and then I get the card and there's a flaw with it. The other issue is that when you're spending thousands or a couple $100s on a card, and all it has is a sleeve and a top loader, that is risky to buy and have shipped to you. That card can so easily get damaged. And then you gotta file a claim, and then the seller's screwed because their car's messed up, their card gets messed up, and then you're upset because you have to wait to get your money back, and you have to send the card back, and that's a pain in the butt. Nobody wants to do that. There's so many aspects of it. Buying graded seems like a great idea because your card's protected, but I feel like everybody should just get on board with buying magnetic plastic card holders that are rigid and protective, and can take any kind of abuse. Because at the end of the day, a top loader, yeah, it's rigid, but I can snap this thing in half if I really want to. If this thing is in shipping, and that's 2, that's not even 1, that was 2. So it's very, very easy to bend one of these things and mess up your card for good. And that can happen in the USPS truck or UPS truck. That can happen so easily. So you know, it's tough because you want your cards protected, but at the same time, it's such a risk buying raw cards, and all of this really is not is not separated or isolated away from the fact that the market is so inflated and prices are so high for these cards. I mean, like, sometimes I'm shook at how much money I've spent on my collection. Like, it's crazy. It's wrong in some respects. And you know, I'm telling you guys this because a lot of you guys have been with me since I had a couple hundred subscribers. So why change being honest at this point? You know, I'm not entirely proud that with, you know, a family and a kid and a wife that I've, you know, spent my money this way, but I really took a big risk. It was a big risk, and I saw this as an investment and an asset, and that I could have some fun in the works. And so now I've got my card shop, and the YouTube's monetized, and this is all great, and hopefully it all really pays off in the end. And I appreciate you guys for supporting me in these endeavors and getting to the point where we're at. But I feel like one of the best things I can do with this channel is to be honest and give an honest assessment about the hobby and different topics, particularly like grading, and you know, whether it's worth it or worth the time or worth the money or the headache. But you know, it doesn't help that all these cards are so expensive now. You know, Silver Tempest, you know, just came out, and you've got this Lugia. When it just came out, it was fetching $300. I got mine for $160, but still, these were fetching $300, and it's like everything has just changed. Like, everything about the hobby has changed. Like, now I look at this and I see a big dollar sign, and I can't help that. It's really beautiful. Like, the pack art for this is beautiful, and like, I really feel like Sword and Shield could be a big era that we talk about for a long time. I don't know if Scarlet and Violet is going to bring the heat the way Sword and Shield did, but I mean, these artworks, the booster boxes, the alternate arts that have come out, it's just getting crazy. It's getting crazy, and you've got to have money to keep up with it. Yeah, anyways, that's a wrap. That's the end of the video. It's up to you guys to decide, you know, what you think of grading. Is it worth the time and the money and the effort? And what do we get out of having these things stored in another plastic case and paying money for it, and paying money for the company to tell us, you know, what it's worth? You know, what all do we get out of that at the end of the day? You know, the main thing is just resale. The resale value, this is the final point, the resale value is probably the strongest point to getting cards graded. It's been this way for years, soon to be decades. Cards, if the company gives a card a 10, it's gonna sell for astronomically more. You know, me and a buddy, we're just talking about, tonight we were in the bar, we were just talking about how crazy it is that Counter-Strike, which is a video game, there's like skins and outfits and things that people can pay for, and there's this rare knife or something that someone got found in a loot box or something, and there's only one of them in the world, and so this person claims that it's worth more than $1.2 million. Like, what's my point here? Just the resale of things. You know, we're creating our own value. Money is always involved, and so yes, back to the point of, if you're getting stuff graded, the resale value could be much higher later in life, just because it's rare and nobody else has it. A big reason why I bought a PSA 5 was because it was a nice middle ground to let me know that, hey, the card is used and it's gonna have edge wear and it's gonna have like surface scratches probably. As long as it's not like bent in half or something, like, I'm gonna be happy with it, because there's no way in heck that I'm paying, like, the PSA 8 Charizard is like 15K, maybe 12K, 13K, I don't know, ballpark. PSA 9, 30, 40, maybe. And then, you know, your PSA 10, $500,000 card, maybe $250,000 card. That's insanity. That's absolute insanity. But But I guess in terms of how rare something is, you can dictate that value. So, and I hope for my sake, my PSA 5 Charizards will rise in value despite me probably never wanting to sell them. I might sell one just to help covering the cost down the road of the first one. But I really bought two because I wanted to see kind of the difference between the thin stamp and the thick stamp. I personally think the thick stamp looks really good on a first edition Charizard. The thin stamp just, I don't know, there's something about it. It just looks kind of weird to me. But I was hoping that, you know, I got a good deal on both the cards. You know, the values of these high-end vintage cards could definitely go down. I'm fully aware of that. You know, it is a risk, but the other part of me is hoping, you know, I think because there's so few of these out here, like there's like 497 PSA 5s, that's nuts to me. And I have 2 of those now coming here. You know, that alone, the fundamental of how scarce these things are alone makes me feel like the prices are only going to go up. So I'm making kind of a calculated, risky decision, but also because I really wanted to complete my master set. And that's another thing. Like, I really wanted all the cards from my first edition base set, master set. I wanted them to all, you know, just look so clean. And it's just so funny. Like, I wanted to have them all graded and in slabs and in a briefcase so I can like it's like this badass thing, like this like secret agent that has a Pokemon card collection. You know, this very, you know, pinnacle of collecting thing. Like, I open up the briefcase and there's all first edition cards, first edition Blastoise, first edition Venusaur, first edition Charizard. Would it have been way cheaper probably to buy it ungraded? Yeah, probably. But I just had to have it look a certain way. I had to put the cards in plastic, in a box, hid away, inside of a bin. Like, it's ridiculous. I am ridiculous. But I am also, in my own head, you know, kind of the man for, like, doing all this and just diving into it and saying, you know, F it. I'm a grown man. I want to have, you know, my childhood back. I want to have those memories and those feelings back. And I did it. There's no going back. But it's crazy because an ungraded Charizard, an ungraded base set, there's like a binder right now on eBay, an ungraded first edition base set, and it's like 11 grand. And I'm like, yo, that's a good deal right there. That's a really good deal. So when it comes down to it, if those cards look decent and are like kind of grade 5, grade 6, that's a really nice little deal right there. Because, you know, that Charizard alone is going to be, you know, 4 or 5 grand. So you're looking at 6 grand. You've got the Blastoise and the Venusaur. That's easily probably another grand there. So you're looking at 5K. 5K for all the uncommons and commons in first edition if they're in good shape. I don't know. There's like a whole different associated value with grading cards, and it's just crazy. And I've heard other, you know, YouTubers, they've talked about their opinions on grading. You just have to have a really good eye. If you have a really good eye, you really don't need to buy cards graded. But again, you have to worry about shipping and all that, and eBay will compensate you. But if your card gets bent in the mail and then you send it back and then you're looking for the same card again, it can just be a lot. But when I was trying to complete my first edition base set, I found that it was easier in a lot of cases to find a decent deal on a graded first edition card than it was a raw card. Because when you're bidding on a raw card, if someone sees it as a 5, or if someone sees it as an 8 or a 9 and they put an astronomical price, you're sitting there thinking, maybe I want to upbid this person. Maybe I want to pay, you know, this extra amount of money. Whereas if it's already a graded card, the market says, no. This is what the card is worth. This is what most people are going to pay around. And you have a better, you know, barometer for how much you want to pay. You have a better idea of what this thing is valued at. So that's the good thing about graded cards. It makes it easier, you know, to assess value. And I think that's really, you know, one of the key takeaways. It makes it important to assess value. But as far as doing it yourself and spending a bunch of money grading your cards, it's not something that I'm all that interested in or think is all that great. I would much rather use that money to buy more product that I can actually see and look with my hands and look at the cards up close. that's just how it is for me personally. I will always buy graded cards. I think graded cards are great, but buying them is so much different than doing them yourself and trying to make a profit, or just getting your cards graded and sinking in additional funds to get the stuff you already have put in a capsule and then shipped back to you. It's just kind of weird how all this stuff works. But anyways, this is 45 minutes long. I'm sorry, guys. But I hope you enjoyed my ranty long video. It's been a while since we had something like this. Thank you guys so much for supporting me, and peace out. I just knocked over a ton of cards in front of me. I've got to move all these cards eventually. All right, peace out, guys. Oh, and stay tuned. We got a mystery mail day video coming right up at you.